Well, hello everyone, my name is Nick, and today I have a minor task to accomplish, and I figured, why not document the process? This could be very helpful to some. So let's turn the camera around to show you what's going on. So recently, I mean probably at this point, it's probably been at least a month or two because this is going to take a process. I did a video on my trellis here and how I grow all these plants on my trellis, and my philodendron red emerald has simply taken over the trellis, but it's gotten a little too tall and it's fallen over. So now it is time to propagate it. Of course, I could have it climb up even higher on the ceiling, but I just don't really feel like screwing anything into the wall. I want to keep it to this trellis. So we're going to propagate this large chunk up top. And the goal in the end is to perhaps maybe plant it back in the bottom here and have another plant grow up, but that might not really be needed from what you see here. So we might just be making another philodendron erubescens red emerald, which would be nice because I only have this one that's attached to the trellis here. So what I'm going to do is start off with some shears. I have some clean cutting utensils here. What are these called? Plant snips, precision snips, shears. There's so many different names for these. It doesn't really matter. You could use a knife. You could use an X-Acto knife. You could use a box cutter. As long as it's clean and it's sharp enough, you can accomplish this task. And you're going to see, it's going to be a little difficult because it's a little high up. I have this attached to the trellis right there. So we're probably going to cut this just a little bit above there, or maybe I should even consider cutting it back even more because this is just going to regrow, and it might not be the smartest idea to have it regrow from the top of the trellis there, but it could be just like one of those plants like my philodendron pink princess where I'm just constantly cutting it back because it's just a little too tall and it's just constantly growing. So this could be just another one of those. But you're going to see along this vine here, do you see where every leaf meets the stem? There is these little root thingies coming out, little nublets. That's the node of the plant, and that's where this is not only going to root, but it would put off new growth if we were to cut this into a couple pieces. But I'm probably just going to keep it as this one plant today. But anyway, I'm going to get in here. I'm going to cut directly in between two of these nodes in what's referred to as the internode, which is this segment of the stem that you can see here that does not have any action going on. There's no leaf coming out. There's none of those root nublet thingies. So we're going to take our shears, and I'm not going to be able to do this with just one hand, but we're going to take our shears and we're going to cut directly in between. Perhaps we'll even go back this far just to have an even meatier plant and just cut a little bit more off of this plant. But I'm going to cut this off and then I will meet you guys over in the kitchen. Alrighty, here we are with our cutting of our philodendron erubescens red emerald. Just to get a little bit more up close and personal with the anatomy of this houseplant, you can see these nodes. Once again, all these brown things right here, this is what's referred to as the leaf sheath. You can pull this away as they turn brown and die off. If I flip it over to the newer part of the plant, you can see these leaf sheaths still alive, but even this one right here, I can just pull it back and I'll just kind of snap off pretty easily. Also, this has kind of a slimy stem. If you can see, it's a little slimy and sticky. That's a natural thing that this plant does. It's just kind of releasing some of its sugars from the leaves. I believe it's a process called guttation. And yeah, so we have this one plant that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nodes on this plant here. So in theory, you could chop this in half. You could chop this in between each and every node, and you could grow 8 plants out of this. And you can see, like, for example, this little red spot right here on the stem, that is where new growth would emerge. So there'd be this little nub that would come out. That's the new growth. It would probably be pretty bright red on this plant in particular because the new growth, as you can see, comes in pretty bright red. So just a fun little thing to be able to watch this grow. But like I said, I am kind of pressed for space. So I don't really want to make 8 plants of this just because I already have such a large specimen. So instead, we're just going to put this whole thing in water. And unfortunately, as much as this bottom leaf is beautiful, I think it's going to kind of keep it out of our water vessel. I should mention, we're going to propagate this from basically the most simple method of houseplant propagation out there. Pretty cut and dry of water propagation, nothing crazy today. I'm just going to put it in water, but I'm gonna follow a tip that a lot of you guys have actually given me in the comments that I don't think I've ever tried, which is to grow your philodendrons or any cuttings that you're growing inside a jar of a pothos rooting. A lot of you have said that if you try propagating something with a pothos, it'll root even faster, something to do with the root or the growth hormones. I don't know, but it's just a tip that you guys have given me in the comments, and I have never tried it, so I'm gonna try it today. And like I'm saying, as much as I would love to keep this leaf on because it's just so gorgeous, I don't think it's going to work out very well. I could try holding it up a little bit and placing it in, as well as this one. But literally, I just have this jar of water here. This is from that project that we did when we were making a full pot of pothos out of one vine, and this is the one vine, and you can see how well it's rooted up. So I figured I don't really have a perfect vessel of water, so this will be perfect for this. I'm just going to place it down inside, in between the pothos. And here we are, as simple as that. You can see our main stem is down there submerged. At least one of the nodes is submerged. I might add even a little bit more water so that two nodes are submerged. I will say I have had sometimes when I'm propagating houseplants an inactive node where it just doesn't seem to root no matter how long it's been. So I'm just a little bit more wary, and I try to submerge at least two nodes whenever I'm propagating something, especially if it's something that I'm a little bit more fond of growing well. So just another tip there. But from here, we're just going to wait. We're entering the growing season. I'm doing this at the beginning of May. So it'll probably only take a couple of weeks before we get some really nice roots, especially since those nodes have some really vigorous aerial roots growing on them already. So I will check back in with you guys in just a matter of weeks. We are back at it with the Philodendron erubescens red emerald, and it's been 22 days, so just over 3 weeks, and I am admittedly pretty shocked at how much roots we have going on in here. So all of those red roots are the philodendron's roots, not to be mistaken with the thinner white roots that are the pothos roots. And not that I wasn't expecting this pothos trick to work, because I was 100% expecting it to work, but I just didn't know it was gonna work this well. This probably started to root up about a week into the process. I should have gotten a shot or two of the process, but this is where we are at 3 weeks in, and I'm really surprised. If we pull our cutting out carefully, pardon my arm in front of the lens there, I think the pothos is coming with it. You can see also how well rooted that pothos is in a shorter amount of time. But this, look at these roots. 3 weeks in, I am not normally getting these kind of roots on a plant in just 3 weeks. So this is completely ready to pot up. I always say you want to wait for at least 1 inch of nice looking roots. And there is a threshold if you grow your plants too long in water. These roots are more acclimated to water situations, so they will have more of a difficult time rooting into soil. So you do want to only root them up until an adequate point, so no longer than a couple of months, depending on the plant and how long it takes to root. But this is, like I've said many times, this is a lot of roots for 3 weeks, so this is ready to pot up. So let's go ahead and pick out a planter. Just grabbed a couple of doodads to help us pot this up. I have a potting mix right here, which is just a standard potting soil with some perlite and some orchid bark and some charcoal added. And I'm just going to put a couple of spoonfuls in our planter. I'm using a 5-inch terracotta planter here, and I would recommend sticking in this ballpark area of a planter size if you're just propagating one philodendron cutting. Of course, if you're doing a lot of cuttings, you can work with a larger container, but if it's just one cutting, I wouldn't go any larger than a 6-inch planter. So this 5-inch planter will be fantastic. We have probably a little too much soil in here, so I'm just gonna take 1 scoop out just to make a little bit more room, just because we have some root action going on at the top here. So I want to make sure that we're able to get that submerged as well. And this looks like a really good height. I'm really happy we were able to keep this one leaf. I think I mentioned that we were going to have to cut it off, but I made it work. Anything's possible. We're just going to scoop our soil in. I'm just holding it in place. Of course, if you have an extra pair of hands, that might come in handy. Or you could perhaps get a little bit more creative. As you see, I have this bamboo, well, maybe you can't see because now the plant's in the way. I have this bamboo stick that I'm having trouble getting into frame, but you understand what it is. I'm just going to push this in here carefully, of course. I don't want to sever any of those roots. And then you can't see at all because that leaf is blocking. I apologize. I'm just going to take some of this plant tape, and I have this available on my Amazon Associates page, which I will have linked below, as well as many other gardening products. And this will just keep our philodendron upright. Of course, we still have to add some more soil in here. push down our soil a little bit, especially at the perimeter, because that's just where it's going to sink if it's not packed down enough. You don't want to pack it down like you would a cup of brown sugar, but you do want to make sure that your plant is going to stay upright. Also, this bamboo stake is obviously going to help with that as well. And I also love to just give my pots a little spank so they know who's boss. It just helps fill in any of those gaps of air so that this can live its best life. So this is really all we have to do. Let me try to get you a better shot at our nicely propagated philodendron here. We can go up and back down. But yeah, that's all there was to it. I'm surprised how quick of a project this was. It never really takes me less than a month to propagate something and feel really confident about the roots that it has. Usually it's a month plus project, but I'm going to be trying out this pothos method with definitely a couple more plants as I begin to propagate a couple more things around my home as the growing season commences. So I'm just going to go pop this in my shower so I can give it a good drink, and from there I'm probably going to be watering it roughly once a week in this porous terracotta planter that's going to be wicking out some moisture. And if it grows a little too much, I think I'm going to have to go plant it up with my trellis plant, which is my original thought, was just going to plant it back in with the other ones, but I feel like I could use a separate one, not attached. Maybe I could get a plant of the week out of the way with this guy before in a couple months I go ahead and just pot it up with its brothers and sisters so that it can just look even more fabulous. But thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you don't already, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at phillyfoliage. Subscribe to my Patreon for even more houseplant content, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day.